Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning, and thanks for joining us on another spring morning for Faith in Our Hometown. We're glad you're taking part of your Sunday morning to maybe wake up a little bit and to join us here to talk about issues of faith that impact us as people of the Joplin area. One of the topics that I've wanted to talk about for a long time, but could never find the right guest to do so, was to ask the question in a non-threatening way, because we don't want to upset your total Sunday morning. But so one of the things I think we always need to think about is whether or not we are guilty of some of the biggest problems that face us as a society. One of those problems is racism. And so I've invited a longtime city council member, Jim West, to come and to talk with us a little bit about the issue of racism, whether or not we've got any remnants of racism in Joplin, or is everything just fine here? What do we need to work on? What do we need to work on as a community? So we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. So stick around, and when we get back, we'll be talking a little bit about racism right here in Joplin.
The different bariatric surgical options here at Mercy Joplin includes laparoscopic Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy, and laparoscopic lap band placement. In addition, we also offer revisional laparoscopic surgeries for those patients that have had previous bariatric procedures but have had failures. The surgical procedure of choice will vary with different individuals, and so that's why our team will work with the patient on an individual basis to determine which procedure is the best fit for them. All three of the bariatric procedures that we offer here at Mercy Joplin have a long track record of proven safety and efficacy. The best procedure for the individual has to be a decision to be decided between the patient and the physician.
So again, thanks for joining us again on a Sunday morning. My guest this morning, Jim West, a longtime city councilman. And so Jim, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and say a little bit about yourself, your family, how long you've been in Joplin, all those good things.
Well, good morning, and thank you for allowing me to come on the program with you. I've lived in Joplin all my life, born and raised in Joplin, attended Missouri Southern University, was a police officer in Joplin some time ago, worked for the Attorney General for 10 years. And I decided to get into politics, the city council work back in 1988. I was elected I was the second Afro-American elected to the Joplin City Council since 1955. So I kind of hold the record, and I've got, at this point, I got 17 years of service to the city as the longest serving member of the city council.
Thank you for your service to the city. It's a good place to be, I think.
I like it. I like it. I'm having fun. Apparently, I'm doing something right because the people keep electing me, I guess.
There you go. And I know that we've talked about this some in our other conversations, but you've said to me before that in some ways, if Joplin were absolutely, completely racist, you'd have never been elected.
Well, that's a true story because we have 50,000 citizens in Joplin, probably about 29,000 registered voters, and we have about 1,900 Afro-Americans in Joplin. So your numbers speak for themselves. You got many voters out there, so you have to have a barrier there, and apparently I have a strong backing and strong support out there to continue my Trump in Joplin.
So what would that percentage be? I haven't done the numbers. So what would be the percentage of our African American population?
It's about 9%.
Okay, so there's a few more African Americans than there are Catholics.
Sure.
Okay, we got so you guys have got us outnumbered, in that regard, because we're about 4% of the Joplin area. And so I know what it's like to be a minority in some ways in an area, but I don't know what it's like to be a racial minority. And that's one of those things that, again, I just want to wade in here because I just think it's something that many times, like somebody like me wouldn't typically. I mean, I do I care about what people think, and I care about relationships for a living. Okay, but I don't know what that's like to grow up, as a racial minority in a place like Joplin. What do you think are some of those challenges to our young people today growing up African American in a place like Joplin?
Well, it's interesting you said that because we had a all-black school in Joplin years ago. Lincoln School was in Joplin. I attended Lincoln School.
Okay.
On the corner of
Back
7th.
Before when things were segregated.
Back segregated. We had to go to the all-black school, and I had to My mother drove me right past Washington School, the all-white school, going to Lincoln until after the decision. So I think, one of the main things that I think that we need to continue working on is bringing more Afro-American teachers to the city, to the school district. That way, feel like that there is a clientele there that we can speak out, and the students won't feel so threatened. And they'll learn a lot. And a lot of white students will learn more about the African history.
Sure.
That's one of the things I spoke to our new superintendent about. We have a good superintendent of schools, and I think the school board is looking at that thing, trying to carve that problem.
Well, I think it's important for all kids to have role models, and so to have those folks among our teachers is, I think, an important thing for everybody. To say, well, there's somebody who's like me, at least in that regard. Now, I know that's only one way that we can be like each other or not like each other, but I think it's kind of important for our kids to see that.
And we're starting to have more minority businesses in town. That's the main thing. Even though Broadway is Broadway, there's several other minority businesses in town, downtown too. And there you reach out there. That's where you get your clientele and your culture from. So it's there. We're working. The striving's there. There's always some more work to do, but we're still getting in that direction. So.
Again, I'm just going to ask you to be really honest with me and with our viewers today. Do you think that there are still experiences where racism rears its ugly little head here in Joplin?
Well, yes, they are.
Okay. Just share. Let's just talk about some of that, because I think, I'm not aware until I hear stories.
Well, I can an example of that. I'll be in the store doing something, in line to do something, and there were maybe 2 or 3 white people in the line beside me, and I've been standing there too, and I've literally been overpassed because they went to white people first. It
Interesting.
happened.
You mean so somebody who's like a checkout person or something?
Yes.
Or somebody to help counter or something.
Anyway, on that premise, and it happens.
Okay.
And it's happened here in Joplin all the time, but it happened to me. It happens to me that I know it's happened out there. It happens to somebody else too. I didn't get up and get mad and start throwing shoes and stuff. I just stood there, wait my time, come on and said thank you and go. But you have to have patience, and think about what you want to say, because you can say the wrong thing and all of a sudden you can't take it back.
Yeah.
You can't take it back. So, it's there. There are some things out there, and there's not many businesses that operate of this nature, but it's just how you train your employees to be receptive and to treat everyone on the same level. That's all you ask for. That's all you ask for.
Yeah, and I think that's an important message for all of our kids, that it really doesn't matter,
it's true.
What a person looks like or whatever, we should get treated the same in commerce and in all those, ways.
Well, our kids are an example, because they are our leaders of tomorrow. And they're getting along much better than probably some when I was younger but that's where they are. They're running and playing, good time. We've had these issues of these shootings lately. It's been really, really saddening. And you look out in the crowd and you see all those students out there. You see many black students, white students, they're all together. That's going to be the big push. That's going to be the push to put a big stop on some of all of this racism.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm also, besides being pastor here at St. Peter's in Joplin, I'm also pastor at St. Anne's in Carthage. And that congregation is about half Anglo and half Guatemalan, okay? And so it's interesting to me that the one place where we have no distinctions at all are the little kids that are in the school. Kids that are in our grade school, nobody pays any attention. They don't pay any attention. Nobody else pays any attention to whether they got brown skin or white skin or what. It doesn't matter.
They're having fun.
They're having fun. They're learning. And things are good. If I could duplicate that sense, that spirit, everywhere I ever went, in terms of having people, being able to be comfortable just where they're at, we'd have some success on our hands.
Well, you understand, there's not a big racism problem in Joplin. I understand that, because there's several places I go, people speak to me all the time. Just a hello, how are you doing?
Sure.
And they're out there and stuff, but there's always a little area there that, we always, there's a famous statement that Dr. King says, we made some strides, but we still have some ways to go.
Some ways to go.
Still some ways to go.
It's interesting to me. I will say this. We just, Catholics have never really been successful in our evangelization efforts of African Americans. We got a few pockets here and there, but we just don't. And again, I don't think our church is unwelcoming, but at times I wonder how welcoming we are. I mean, and again, it's just something I ask myself because we don't have, I've got more, and I'll just say this point, I've got more Africans than I have African Americans.
And the African American nationality normally are Baptists.
Yeah.
We're Southern Baptists. I'm a Baptist. There's the Southern Baptist. We have several Baptist churches in Joplin. And that's where they are. Like you said, and you said you're Africans because that's where they've been. The culture's been. There's so many been trips over there back and forth. So that's where they're going. The culture is.
Yeah. So it's always interesting to me that, that even in a city as large as I'm living right now, and I can just tell you that I've got the most diverse population that I've ever had of any place that I've ever pastored. I've got more minorities of different stripes, of different, nationalities. I'm just telling you, I'm living and pastoring the most diverse parish I've ever pastored in my life. But, Asians of so many different types, Hispanics of so many different types. I just got all kinds of variety, except not many Africans or African Americans. So, and again, like I said, I got more Africans than I do African Americans. And really, I could probably count them on 4 hands. If I use my fingers and my toes, that would be just about everybody.
Well, a few years back, there was several families of African Americans that went to St. Peter's, a church up here, and which they're gone off now, and some of the families still around here, but that was probably 15, 20 years ago, but things have changed much, as you said before, so.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. And again, I don't know whether it's because we've, folks have just moved away, or whether, and again, you just ask yourself the question, could we be doing more? Could we be doing more to be paying attention to it, to make ourselves even more welcoming? Because I would be upset. I don't care who comes to the door. I'd be upset if they didn't feel like they were welcomed when they walked in it.
Sometimes we get complacent in where we are, what we do. And I've told you before, I get out and about, see people all the time. I could go up into a room with 5 lions in that room, and I could find one good lion in that room. And that's just how I feel that way. I always carry myself that way, and that's just how I am, because it's it. That's it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So in terms of this, what can we do to make even if we don't have a major problem? You don't sense any real hostility from a lot of people, do you?
No. I think Joplin is a fine place to live. I've lived there all my life. I had a chance back in 75 to go to work for the Tulsa Police Department, but I chose not to go. And 11 of my friends went. I wanted to stay in Joplin. My mother and father was here, of course, and Joplin's a good place to live. Good place to live. Everything's good. We're doing well. The city's doing well with all the damage and stuff we did. More jobs are coming and stuff. So, I brag about Joplin. And our taxes are not very high, and even a little higher. They help out the city, but we're doing well. We're doing well, and I'm a strong supporter of Joplin. Joplin's my home. It's going to be my home. That's where I am.
Yeah, I've been here a lot less time than you have, obviously, but my my 12+ years have been really pleasant. I've been like I say, I moved all the way from Cape Girardeau, so they got to keep me on the edges of the diocese. They can't get me anywhere to the but at any rate, they got to have me almost fallen off the edge. But I've thoroughly had a great time in the time that I've been here. My guest this morning is Jim West. We've been talking a little bit about the issue of racism and whether or not what we still need to work on, as a community of brothers and sisters here in the greater Joplin area. So, at any rate, we're gonna, this is Faith in Our Hometown. We're gonna take a real quick break, and we're gonna be right back after this real quick break. All right, stick around.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
So again, my guest this morning, Jim West. Jim, thanks for joining us again this morning. The question we didn't quite answer at the end is we don't have any open hostilities, but what can we do to make everything better? What do you think is part of the key here?
Well, I think just the key is just open conversation, speaking to people. Churches, all the churches are full. OCC and your church and stuff. Just get together and have some just all faith religion get together and have a strong following. I think that's the key right there. And you can't force people to do, but you can open the doors for them to come and say, you'd be surprised how many people want to do that. There are several people in town that's interested in doing what you're doing, kind of see where we are, where we need to go, how we need to get there, and make it work, And I think it's on the move. It's on the move. It's just being open about it and let them make their decision.
Yeah, you and I in some of our earlier conversations talked a little bit about some of the things that, that sometimes our kids have happened, and this is where we know that sometimes it's not really completely gone. We know it's not a pervasive problem, but that there's still some, what I would consider some of the I'm going to make a judgment call here, but I think societal rot, where we've made our problems in the past and where still sometimes we haven't rooted it out and gotten rid of it.
Undercurrents.
Yeah, and so, our kids still sometimes have to deal with that. You were telling me some of the experience that some of our youth have had to deal with from time to time in some of the areas around Joplin.
Around Joplin, at the schools, sometimes we've had some issues with schools and issues with some schools out of the city and some racism problems, that comes up, and we had to see what about that. And some think it's a joke, but it's not a joke. And so therefore you have to kind of stand up and say, no, this is not right. And the good thing about it, those corrections were made by where it was occurred at, because they would let know this has happened, so the word has been put back. And we have more open understanding of our school administrators and our police departments and our judges and our sheriff's department, because we have a very good police department in Joplin, a very good fire department, and our sheriffs is good. So we have a good relationship there, and they don't stand for a lot of that racism stuff. I mean, I know several of them I spoke to on issues like that, and they just won't stand for it. So, and that's good, because you have that to show that that's the kind of protection you have. You have to have it there, but to work it out yourself, our youth is what's going to be the key to put this thing together. And us older adults, we're going to be there watching too, so apply assistance to them.
Yeah, and I think it is. I think it's just something that all of our, parents and grandparents and, and folks that are watching this morning. I don't think we get a high demographic of kids watching on Sunday morning, but what the heck. But the parents and grandparents that are watching, I think we just have to continue to remember that we need to call each other on issues.
Yes.
Yes. When somebody says something that is, just a little over the line, you just say, wait a minute, stop. There's no room here for
I've done that.
Part of the conversation.
I've stepped up. I said, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
And if you ignore what you're saying, they'll be said again.
Right.
So that person needs to let know that's not a proper thing to say, and sometimes it is not so. And they will respect you. And I'm sorry. Well, sorry is okay, but think next time.
Please don't do it again.
Think next time before you act like that, because it's there. Just like saying my client passed polygraph test. You can't say that in court, but it's already been said. So therefore, somebody makes racial slur like that, you can't take it back. It's there. So it's called think and buyer beware. That's what I say.
Well, and again, in terms of those things, I mean, I just think there are little subtle things that all of us do. I mean, I know there were certain things. I mean, it took me years to get my dad to stop saying a couple things, and I just kept saying to him, that's just not, and I don't care whether or not he was, whoever he was talking about, whether, it was a minority, whether it was a racial thing, whether it was some of that. And I love my dad. My dad really was not an unfair kind of guy, but he grew up saying certain things, and nobody ever challenged some of that.
Well, my mother, may she rest in peace, my mother and father was in Arkansas. It took my mother a long time to identify people who they are, and I said, that's not who they are, Mother. This is where they are. And so she said, well, I said, no. So, I mean, it's a learning thing. And of course, those from the South, it's hard to get over that because they've seen it and they've experienced it.
Right.
So when they come out there, they expect it, but you get up in this part of the country, it's not really that prevalent as it might be down in the South. South is nice, but it's a different perspective up here.
Yeah, and and we've let's face it. I mean, Missouri, even in our part of Missouri, struggled a lot. Even at the time of the Civil War. Yes. Because we had a very mixed kind of a situation where we were, fighting amongst ourselves the same way the country was fighting over some of that stuff. We were one of those battleground areas right here in southern Missouri, and I think even people say, oh, that shouldn't matter, that didn't, but I think that those remnants sometimes still.
Well, we
hang
know
on.
You know about the Civil War caves, and all the revolution, and this part of Missouri, right here close by, we had 3 active Ku Klux Klan groups right close by. When there's talk that maybe a cave or 2 still around here and stuff, you see, it's here. It's just gone away somewhat.
Yeah. We even have some great old stories, in our history books at St. Peter's about our dealings with the Klan,
I'm sure of that.
Because we weren't very popular either, some of those groups, and while sometimes I'm not very popular with me, for at least not for that reason. At least not for that reason, not because of who we are. So, what do we need to do? So our kids, so we need to call each other on things. What else can we do to make sure our kids get the message that everybody has a space at the table?
I think reaching out, like we talked about, going to different churches and organizations and just participating in all kind of programs, have an ethics program, and there are several things that's going on out there. There's some people working on some history stuff to be coming up soon. I'm not going to expose what it's about, but there's a history thing that should be taken off here in the middle of April of a real serious thing that happened in Joplin back in 1812, and it's going to be real-live stuff. So don't like to relive too much of the past, want to go forward, but we must remember the past is still there.
Well, and I do think there is something to that. You look at it, because if you don't, you're going to make some of the same mistakes.
True.
If you don't learn something from, what you've been through. I know, in Springfield, and I don't know whether this ever happened in Joplin, because again, I don't know the history as well here. I've just never had reason to, to delve into it as much. But I know in Springfield, we had a very small African American population because of lynchings that took place. And when those lynchings took place, we just lost most of that contingent of the city. So when I was up there again, we just had a very small African American contingent because at one point in time, everybody left because nobody wanted to be around it.
Well, we had lynching in Joplin back in 1819.
Okay.
And that's what I was getting that's going to be relived, and there's some stuff going that's going to be discussed and brought back up about that.
Yeah.
Well, and I just,
stuff,
that's history. That's history.
It is history, and I think our I just think our youth need to understand that some of that stuff is, and again, I don't think the purpose to any of this is to keep race relations stirred up, but I think it's that if we don't take a look at where we've been and the progress we've made, and a reminder to ourselves that if we stop making the progress, if we stop having the conversations, I mean, it's very easy. It'd be very easy for me to just retreat to my own little Catholic silo and deal only with Catholics. And that's not going to do me much good in terms of understanding somebody else or in terms of having that conversation.
It's conversation. You said open up the dialect of a conversation. Conversation, understanding everybody's feelings and their wants and their wills and stuff. That'll make the whole thing turn around. Yeah.
And I mean, and again, when my work especially at Southeast Missouri State University, and now a little, in the work that I do at Missouri Southern, we do. I learn more about, because that's an educational institution. So in that educational institution, during Black History Month and during those, I mean, I've learned more stuff than I just was never exposed to until I was in those communities. And again, I think that's important, for us to do that. And as we continue to expand, as our tapestry continues to get even more multi-hued, I think it's important that we look at the history that everybody brings and what everybody's experience has been. I know that many of my ancestors came from Germany when Catholics were getting picked on. Okay, so in other places when people are getting picked on, and those kinds of things, that's how we often wind up in the conversation, is just to say, well, I remember there was a time when we went through the same thing.
Exactly.
We went through the same thing. And then you tell, that part of the story, because then our young people have got an opportunity to say, oh, well, when that happened, that was like what happened. Okay. So now we're looking at each other saying, oh, we're really kind of the same in some ways. We've there's that bridge of connection to do some of that.
And the open communication makes it all more better.
Oh,
makes it all more better.
Yeah. So, and again, one of those cultural things, and I'm going to give you a little chance to talk about this just because I know it's happening here. But, one of those big things, again, in university and culture and stuff, food and all those kind of good things. And so each one of us has got some great, family recipes, some great, some great things. And some of my best moments have been when I've been in other people's cultures and shared some of those things. And we've got some restaurants here, and I know even you're involved, with getting one rolling here very soon, about having some of that cultural opportunity to share each other's food.
I'm working with a friend of mine. I probably won't tell the name out loud, but with a friend of mine, there's a restaurant that's coming on Broadway. There's 3 or 4 restaurants on Broadway.
Right, exactly.
And all kind of culture from the South, all that kind of thing. So, it's the food kind of tells a story by itself. So
yes, it does.
And some good Southern cooking is always good.
Well,
always good.
Jim, I thank you for coming on this morning. I'm glad we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about, some of these things. We, probably, we might do this again sometime and talk maybe a little bit about some of the harder, the edgier stuff that we have to do. But I think that this is good that we come in this context to make sure that we can start just a gentle conversation about racism here in the Joplin area, what remnants we have. We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute.
The SANE program, or Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program, is a program established to provide a coordinated, specialized care to patients or women or men who've been the victim of sexual assault.
The SANE program is really designed to be a collaborative community response to sexual assault.
It's really important to make sure that it's not just the report or the forensic, but they get all of the testing that might be needed for their health.
It's also important to know that you don't need to know if you want to press charges or not. We don't get law enforcement involved unless you request it.
I just want to express to the victim that it is never your fault. You always have the right to say no, and that it's your body. So if you say yes one time, it doesn't mean every time.
I think it's important that sexual assault victims remember they've been victims of a crime, and crime victims do not pay for those services.
Well, I hope this morning we've just kind of maybe made each other think just a little bit, okay? Talking this morning with Jim West about the issue of racism here in Joplin. No, we don't think we've got a major problem, but have we gone as far as we can in terms of making sure that people know how to talk to one another? There we probably need to make a little bit of improvement and make a few more strides. So that's my challenge to all of you this week. Reach out and talk to somebody that you normally just kind of skirt around or go the other direction. Reach out and talk to somebody that you haven't about what their experiences have been and what it was like to grow up, either here in the Joplin area or not, to grow up as a person of color versus somebody who grew up in white bread America. What are those things? What are those things that can help us to have the conversation to understand each other better? I think that's important for those of us who are people of faith, and this is Faith in Our Hometown. Come back and join us again next week. It's always good to spend a Sunday morning with you.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.